Shalom everybody, and welcome back to our class on Rav Noson's Likutey Halakhot, section Orach Chaim, the discourse on the laws of Nefilat Apayim, falling on one's face after the Shemona Esrei. Discourse number 4, paragraph 14, based on lesson 24 of Likutey Moharan. And the recap is that Rav Noson is going really refined into this concept of Naaseh v'Nishma. How the whole key of Judaism is that we do first out of emunah, and then we understand. And the backbone for all of that is simcha. The goal is simcha, and to come to that attitude of doing things out of emunah, even though you have maybe the ability to understand, but no, you choose to serve Hashem with simple, straightforward emunah, and then the understanding will come inside. It'll come in its place. But in the meantime, I'm doing my part in serving Hashem with total simplicity. Even if I have a brain, but I push it off the side and serve Hashem out of complete emunah. This is a great valor, a great value. And Rav Noson is really going into this. And at this point now, he wants to show that this is the whole difference between the Jewish nation and the other nations who are very extreme and they're being Gentiles, namely in their atheistic ideology. So it doesn't mean all goyim, but specifically the goyim who are really hardcore atheistic and idol worshippers and go around the bend, okay? So again, Rav Noson went a lot into this, the difference between chametz and matzah, the difference between Pesach and Shavuot, Naaseh v'Nishma, and now the next stage, the Jews and the Gentiles. That's in fact how Rav Noson began this whole discourse. He wanted to mention that at the beginning of paragraph 13, where he said, this is the difference between the Jews and the idol worshippers, the goyim. Again, they're good goyim, okay? But there are those goyim who are really into atheism and really have a distorted way of looking at things in life. And Rav Noson is going to point out what is the distortion. Watch. Avala akum, paragraph 14, right? Avala akum, ha'epikorsim, hem mizuamat hanachash. Now, the Jewish people, to recap, we received the Torah at Har Sinai because we said Naaseh before Nishma. Naaseh meaning I'll do. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. Without understanding. Afterwards I understand. How does that work? Of emunah. Because I'm functioning and working and burning off of emunah, like Rabbi Nachman says in this lesson 24, that through simcha, you arouse, the mitzvot arouse the whole creation, and you arouse bracha, and the main bracha to get is the bracha of the intellect. However, once this bracha of intellect comes down, you fill it with emunah. That's what he's saying here now. That even though I have a blessing of intellect coming down, I choose not to use the intellect to delve deeper in understanding. Rather, once I'm told what to do initially, I already put in emunah, and this joining of my intellect with emunah allows me to perceive the infinite light. That's amazing. Okay? So that's how he started into all of this. This is the Jewish nation. So now, what are the Gentiles then? Avala akum ha'epikorsim. However, the idol worshippers, the nations, and Rav Nosson is very specific. What type of nations? Ha'epikorsim, those who are atheists. Epikors is from the root atheist in English. Hem mizuamat hanachash. They come from the pollution of the snake. What does it mean, the zuamat hanachash? According to the Kabbalah, Chava was polluted by the snake. The primordial snake had arms and legs, and he actually had relations with Chava. And the Zohar and the Kabbalah goes really deep into this, saying that this was a major part of the blemish of eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It involved also the snake polluting Chava. There's a whole thing in the Zohar and the Kabbalah, how the tree of knowledge of good and evil had a part that was death and part that was life. You touched a certain part of the tree, it would be death. Part of the tree, and you wouldn't die. So when the snake pushed Chava's hand to touch the tree, he made her touch the part of the tree that there's no death involved in it. So he convinced her, you see, you didn't die. So just like touching the tree, you won't die. Eating the fruit also, you won't die. That's where he was wrong, and she believed him, right? Eating the fruit, or the Zohar says also involved her having relations with the snake, allowed the snake to pollute Chava and all of her offspring from that point on. Okay? So that was Hevel, Cain, whatever, Shet. Okay? They were all pollution. The Jewish people were taught in the Gemara that in Har Sinai, when we received the Torah and we said Na'aseh v'nishma, Paska zuhamatan. This pollution from the primordial snake ceased by the Jewish people at Har Sinai, whereas the rest of humanity continues to have that pollution. Okay? Paska zuhamatan. There's no more filth of the snake. So he's saying, Rav Nosson, the nations who are atheistic, they come from the pollution of the snake. So Rav Nosson is now going into a further step to say that snake mentality is to use logic before emunah. Okay, that's what the snake attacked. You see, you touched the tree, you didn't die. He used rationale to try to convince it to bring her down. That's the idea of rationalization before doing. And that's wrong. We Jewish people, we do and accept, and then we rationalize. We believe we're convinced to believe Hashem, you're the God, Moshe Rabbeinu, you're the teacher. That's it. From this point, whatever you teach us, we accept blindly. And afterwards, we'll try to understand it. Whereas the Zumat Hanacha says, no, you have to question every detail. Who said Hashem didn't say touch the tree, etc. So this is called the pollution of the snake. Mipgam etz hadat tovara. Unbelievable. In other words, the atheist, they're rooted in the filth, the pollution of the snake, which is synonymous with the blemish of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because the idea of the tree of knowledge of good and evil is there's no room for emunah here. Everything is what's a logical rationale, which makes sense, which is right, which is logic rationale that doesn't make sense, which is wrong. Everything is logic in the tree of knowledge of good and evil with no emunah. There's no emunah there because everything is just using the brain to try to understand. And that's wrong. If there's no emunah in the intellect, a person can easily 100% fall off. If there's no emunah in a person's intellect, the person thinks Judaism is just a course in university, Judaism 101, without the involvement of emunah, they missed the point. Judaism is not another like a theological and intellectual, rationalized, like reasoning and logical religion of just logic and intellect. There's emunah. There's the emunah factor. That means that no matter how many people try to study, they have all these Chinese people trying to study Gemara because the Jewish people are so smart, so let's learn Talmud. But they don't realize that the factor that makes us so smart is we have the input of emunah in our rationalization. We have always emunah forefront, which allows us not to stumble in our decisions and allow us to make the right choices in life because emunah is always forefront, and that allows us that we have divine providence and guidance in everything we do. And the intellect afterwards works out properly, B'ezrat Hashem. Whereas the blemish of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there's no emunah at all. It's good, what's right and what's wrong, and it's all just intellectual basis of trying to figure out rationally what's right and what's wrong with no emunah. Okay? And he says, She'enam b'nei emunah. The nations who are atheists, they are not b'nei emunah. They are not b'nei emunah. That's an unbelievable statement. They're not children of faith because there's no emunah in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. You need the prerequisite. They say, the Zohar says, that the Talmud Bavli, okay, is written in Aramaic. Aramaic is the language of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Rabbi Nachman goes into this in lesson 19, that you have Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue, the language of the nations, and the interface language is called Targum. Targum, Aramaic. Aramaic is in between the holy tongue and the impurity, okay? It's in between. So now that's the idea of true knowledge of good and evil. It's good and evil together and has to be sifted out. So the Talmud is written specifically in Aramaic because the job when we learn Gemara is to clarify the law. But as Jewish people approaching the learning of Talmud, we come with the prerequisite of emunah. So even though we're learning Talmud and it's involved with all logic, Rabbi says like Ravina says like this, Rav Ashi says like this, Rav says like this, Shmuel says halacha like who, but how could it be boom, 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 all these dialectics and halachic clarification, we come to the right conclusion because our attitude is we want to serve Hashem. And we need emunah for that. We come with the attitude of emunah, learning the Torah, the oral Torah, the Talmud Bavli, the Talmud, okay? So now emunah is not there. Emunah is rooted on a higher level. He says, Rav Nosson, the nations who are rooted in the tree of knowledge of good and evil are not bnei emunah. So where's emunah to be found? In the tree of life. The Orach Chaim, which is what Adam and Chava were postponed from touching. They said, if now you pass the test of not eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, when it comes to Shabbat, you will access the tree of life. Tree of life is where the Jewish people are rooted. our neshamot, our root, our connection, which was enhanced at Har Sinai when we said Na'ava Nesam Nishma, reconnecting to the tree of life, which is where emunah is rooted, and that's where we come from. Yes, we are involved in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is the good and evil in life and in everything, and we're sifting it out through intellect, but coupled with, and first and foremost, emunah. Okay, so we're involved in the tree of knowledge of good and evil in our daily struggle of Torah study and observance, etc. We have to sift out. That's our job in this world, to sift out the good trapped in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is fallen into the domain of unholiness. Okay, so yes, we're involved in that. But the nations, they're rooted in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so there's no emunah. She'enam b'nei emunah. That already says everything. If the nations are not b'nei emunah, that means whatever they do is just out of rationale. There's no faith that pushes them to follow in life a life of faith. They can say they believe, but when it comes to practical application, there's no faith in there. Again, we're talking about the nations who are atheists. This is why they're atheists, because there's no emunah there. The kodem shosim shum uvda tova. He says, now what is the attitude of these type of nations, of these atheists who are not bnei emunah? The kodem shosim shum uvda tova v'hem meshukaim adayin betavotein haraot. And before they do any good deed, good act, and while that's happening, before they even do the good act, they're still sunken low in their evil lust and desires. They do what they want. No one tells them what to do, so they open themselves fully to doing evil, to being involved in their lusts and following their lusts and letting the lust control them. So while being in that framework, הם רוצים תכף להשיג בשכלם המגושם בתאוות. They want, even though they're so impure, they don't recognize it. While they're impure, they want immediately to perceive in their intellect, which is so materialistic because of their desires, their physical desires, in that framework of their mentality, להשיג חקירות בידיעת אלוקותו יתברך. I want to perceive God. Unbelievable. I am as I am. But yeah, even though I'm as I am, blemished and everything, as I am, I want to perceive chakirot, intellectual speculation and investigation and introspection, all these funny words in the knowledge of godliness, blessed be. They want to understand Hashem's ways before they commit. Let me go in. What is it about? What does it say? What do we do? What is the meaning behind? All these questions without any emunah. And they don't realize the way you are, your brain is so clogged due to all the distractions because of all the lust and desires that you allow into yourself, and you expect your brain to be clean and pure. It's not. And yet, in that framework of your mentality, you want to perceive God. You don't think that's wrong? You think that's okay? Yeah, that's okay. I'm perfectly fine. I'm okay. The Torah has to adjust to me. As opposed to saying, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my brain is missing some screws because of how I am. No, they don't say that. I'm okay. I'm perfectly fine. The Torah has to bend itself to me. Hashem, in order for it to convince me to do good, it has to be acceptable in my mind. As blemished as it is, but it has to be acceptable in my mind. They missed the point because there's no emunah. Okay? This is the difference between us and these nations. That they want to first nishma, let us understand the depth behind the meaning of the mitzvot before doing. שבתחילה יגלה להם השם יתברך כל סודותיו. They want Hashem reveal to me all the secrets. Okay, ויגלה להם כל דרכי הנהגותיו וטעמי כל המצוות. And that Hashem should reveal to them all the ways of His conduct with us, with His creation, and the meaning, the reasoning and the meaning behind the mitzvot. And then, ואז אפשר היו מרוצים לעשות איזה מצווה. And then, perhaps, maybe, they would be willing to do a mitzvah. After all of this bending that they expect of the Torah to bend itself, to explain itself to them so that they should accept to do it, without emunah, then maybe they'll do it. Maybe, and only then maybe they'll do. And this is the big difference between us and the nations. In this case, we do without questions. You tell us to put on tefillin, we put on tefillin. You tell us to keep Shabbat, we keep Shabbat. Afterwards we understand. That was what the Jews said at Har Sinai. They accepted the Torah on that condition, that we will do without understanding. You tell us what to do, we'll do it. And then afterwards we'll seek to understand. We want to display emunah. We want to show that we are b'nei emunah, as opposed to the nations, the epicorsim, are rooted in the filth of the snake, which is always to question and to speculate and no emunah, no emunah. Okay, we're not like that. This, Rav Nosson points out, is the main difference between the Jews and the nations who are atheistic, who went all the way.